Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Okay, guys, welcome to the Shrimp Tank Charleston show. As we mentioned in the intro, we have Coach Shawn Elliott guest today, who's a friend of mine. I've known this gentleman since 2010, I think, is when you got the job at the University of South Carolina. So, yeah. Shawn, welcome to the show, man.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you having me. It's always a good time to get together and see you.
Yeah, it's we have some awesome memories together, both you and I, plus our wives and our kids. Just so everybody knows, Shawn and I, when he first moved to Columbia, South Carolina, to be the offensive line coach for the University of South Carolina Gamecocks, he was my next door neighbor, and it built a really nice relationship, not only for Shawn and I, but his wife Summer and my wife Jennifer, and then his children Max and Madden, who were both the same age as my boys Owen and Alex. So
that's right.
I'm excited to let everyone know your story, because you do have a great story. A lot of people don't probably know the full extent of it. And Gus Just is also with us.
What's going on, Eric?
Good to have you, Gus.
Yeah, another great guest. You're just knocking them down.
Yeah, it's like athletes of the month between Shawn playing at App State, to having Xavier McDaniel on the show, to Marcus Ogden on the show. So it's all good stuff. But let's just jump into this. So Shawn is in town, I think maybe on a recruiting trip. But just to give, let me first go back. Let me give you a little more bio on Shawn Elliott. So Shawn played football. He's from Camden, not New Jersey, the rougher part of town, Camden, South Carolina, where he played football and then went on to play football and be a star player at App State under the legendary coach Jerry Moore, and won some national championships at App State, not only as a player, but a coach, and then was brought in by Steve Spurrier, the legend Steve Spurrier, to come and run the offensive line at the University of South Carolina. And then he did such a great job, and they kept winning. And really everything kind of changed where he became the co-offensive coordinator along with Steve Spurrier Jr., and those guys ended up having, 3 consecutive 11-win seasons?
We did.
Wow.
Yeah.
And beat Clemson 4 or 5 years in a row?
I think it was 5.
5 years in a row. And then I don't think they've beat them since, but maybe that will change with Coach Beamer. But and then he went on to become the interim head coach at South Carolina when Steve Spurrier stepped down, and then he got the job as the head football coach at Georgia State, which is in the Sun Belt Conference out of Atlanta, Georgia. And a lot of people didn't know about Georgia State prior to Shawn getting there. And next thing you know, Shawn's turned them into winners. So I always knew this guy was a legend in the making, and there's still more to come. So first, again, saying thank you, grateful for having you. But let's go and jump into this. So when you grew up in Camden, South Carolina, and I know your story. You're just, come from a great family. You got a brother named Mitch who lives in Charleston, who's a great guy. I wish I saw that gentleman more. And so you're growing up, nice family, nice household, all that kind of stuff, and then you head over to App State. Do you get a scholarship to App State?
That's a great question, to be honest with you. So
only great questions from me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really great question. I actually got a half scholarship to Appalachian State.
So what does that mean? What did you get?
So half tuition. Basically not a full scholarship. It was really interesting because, of course, the out-of-state tuition, I think at that time was about $18,500 to go to school at Appalachian State. So, roughly half of that. But my recruitment was one that was really strange because I didn't get recruited to Appalachian State until a week prior to signing date. And so that Wednesday before the signing date there, the first Wednesday in February, I got a call from Jerry Moore and asking me to come to Appalachian State and take a visit. And he told me there's no scholarship available, but we'd love to have you come up and just take a look at the place.
Who else was recruiting you at the time?
I was probably going to end up going to the Citadel. That's
Played football for those guys too?
Yes, that's probably where I'd have been.
You, the ladies' man, was going to go to the Citadel.
Well, Charleston,
Oh, well, that's
it would
true.
have been a really good place.
And so, did Jerry kind of convince you to go? Coach Moore convince you to go, or
No, what had happened was, like I said, he offered me to come up and visit. He didn't offer a scholarship. He said there was no scholarship. During my visit, someone actually went elsewhere. So there was a half scholarship available. In 1AA football, FCS now, you could have half scholarships. So you could break them up. You could have a quarter, you could have half or whatever. But he did fulls and halves. So we have our exit meeting on that Sunday after the visit. He walks in, he goes through this whole spiel about, great weekend, all the stuff. And, the very last thing he said is, we've got a half scholarship for you, And I was thrilled to death. And I believe my words to him was, well, I was coming regardless, but I appreciate the half scholarship. And but I told him, I said, I'm going to have the full scholarship here pretty quickly. And 7 days into our freshman camp, or the two-a-day camp, I'd earned a full scholarship. So I walked in there, I believe, on August 3rd in 1991, and then on August 10th, I was put on full scholarship.
And so, and I just don't remember, because I know when you were there, they were good. Were they
Yes.
good before too?
Yeah, they were pretty good. I really took notice of Appalachian State because back at that time when Jerry Moore became the head coach, they had about 45 players quit. They brought him in from West Texas. He was the head coach at Texas Tech. He had been fired and released out there. So when he came in, he did things a little bit differently. And so there was a big revolt. I remember reading about it in the Charlotte Observer, and all those players took off on him. And for whatever reason, I just became attracted to that story, and I was like, that's where I want to go. And I'd always been to the mountains. I'd always traveled up there. I'd skied. I loved the environment, and I just said that's my place. And I was going there regardless.
It's a beautiful campus, man. And the stadium is beautiful. The whole setting up there is gorgeous. And App State has done some incredible things, really a lot of things since your time there and on. And so when you're there, and I know you, your quarterback that time was Scott Satterfield,
Yes.
who is now the head football coach at Louisville, who was the head coach at App State. You had some great talent with you there.
We really did. Scott Satterfield, like you said, he's the head coach at Louisville now. The head coach now at Appalachian State is Sean Clark. He played right offensive guard for us. My college roommate, Mark Ivey's the defensive line coach at Louisville. Several other players. We had Dexter Coakley from right here in Mount Pleasant.
The Cowboy
Yeah.
linebacker, right?
All pro. He just actually reached out to me last week. He's living in Texas now after his playing days, and he's got a son that's a wide receiver, and he wanted me to see about bringing him over to camp and having him work out for us and stuff. So it was just real crazy, but we had some fantastic players.
And so you win a national championship while you're there?
Nope, we did not. We fell short. So my senior year, we go undefeated. We were the first Division I, I guess at that time, FCS football program to go undefeated in the state of North Carolina ever. And it's pretty special. We were 12-0 at one point, and we lost in the semifinals to Stephen F. Austin back in the day. So we finished 12-1, which was pretty remarkable. I was very, very fortunate because my senior year in high school, we were undefeated, won a state championship, and then it kind of coincided, and I come back my senior year in college. We're undefeated in the regular season, but we just didn't win it all.
I always think that some people are just born with really good and the word luck is not probably the right thing to say, because typically luck comes with hard work. But you have had some tremendous success from as a player, but then being a part of these coaching teams that have been destinies, and then some ridiculous wins. So then you I say this to so many guests, but I mean this I mean it every time. But here, I can keep talking to you.
Better man.
But I can't go through all your college life. But you then graduate and immediately become a GA, graduate assistant coach, or what happens here?
So I graduated. I tried at that point in time in the 1AA level. You became a restricted earnings coach. I was going to coach football. I knew I was going to do that. At that point in time, I wanted to do it.
You knew you wanted to be a coach.
Oh, I've always known that.
When did you know? Like,
I knew at a real early age. It's going to sound really crazy, but it was actually just machine pitch baseball. I used to play on a team that I used to feel like I could will players to do things. I call it crazy, but I would stand on a fence and I would watch players with such intense looking. I mean, almost like I could hit the ball for them. And I don't know why. I always had that feeling that I could somehow, some way get more out of what they could get out of themselves. If I was around them, or if I worked with them, or if I was a teammate of them, however it was, but I've always known that. And it wouldn't matter if I was in the business world. It wouldn't matter if I was coaching football. I could go coach women's basketball right now, and it's still going to be the same. So it's always been something I've known. But back to your question.
Yeah.
So I actually became an industrial sales specialist for Marvel Saw Company.
Sounds fun.
Hell, let me tell you, it was. So it's crazy to think. So I had just gotten a job, and the whole reason I had gotten this job is because there wasn't a GA spot or a restricted earnings spot at Appalachian. So I needed a job. Playing football, came in contact with a great individual, and he hires me. Phenomenal. I'm living a life.
Have you met your wife, Summer, at this time?
I have not.
Okay, because Summer is what, 3 years younger than us?
5
years younger than us. So you really were rocking the cradle. You're like Elvis Presley with Priscilla.
Yeah.
Summer was 13 years old when he first started dating her. But go ahead.
So I take that job. Coach Moore knew I wanted to be a coach. Whatever. This was a great company. I mean, they gave me a company car. They have an expense report. They paid me a great salary. I mean, when you're 21, 22 years old, they paid me a salary. I went home. I bought a house in my hometown of Camden, South Carolina. All this transpired in about 6 months. And then I get a call.
I don't even know this story.
You don't?
No.
Oh, well. So, yeah, I was an industrial sales specialist for Marvel Saws. And I get a call it may have been July 28th, 27th, right before the camp started in August. And Jerry says, Coach Moore says, Sean, he said, I got a spot for you. He said, I can pay you $7,000, but I want you to come back and coach. And so I pulled over on the side of the road, and I told him yes, and I called my boss, and I told him I was quitting, and I called my parents. I said, I got to be at App in 2 days. I'm taking a coaching job. And my mom and dad fell out because I just bought a house. And I said, can you rent it? Can you sell it? What can you do? I said, but I'm going back to Boone to be a football coach. And the rest is history. I went and I moved into an office and slept on the floor.
I remember. I do remember this story. So you went and you're making $7,000.
Yeah.
You're living. Didn't you make like in the gymnasium or something?
Yes.
Like a closet into your bedroom.
I did. So the first probably 2 or 3 months I lived in the field house. So I just slept in my office. I put cushions on the floor. I slept there at night. And then there was a small room in this place called Broomkirk Gym that no longer exists at Appalachian State. No windows. It did have a bathroom. I guess you would say it was really cool. There was no rent. I had my own key, and I just went and moved in.
You have no television either? I mean, what?
I had no television.
What do you? You're not a reader. I don't see you just sitting in bed reading.
I didn't spend a whole lot of time. It was like a 12 by 12 jail cell, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's like solitary confinement. It sounds like.
But it was in a gym. We had a big, nice Olympic-sized swimming pool. We had some basketball courts, and there was action going on there all the time. So I wasn't in that room much, but I lived in that room for 4 more years.
Really?
4 years.
Still, and 4 years later, you still making $7,000?
I went. It went 7 to 10 to 13 to 17 was my last year as a quote unquote restricted earnings coach.
When you were making 17,
Yes.
were you like, I can't believe I'm making this much money? Or were you like
at that point in time, when it was my 4th year, I was like, I better hit a job here pretty quickly. This is gonna go somewhere else. And my parents were like, what are you doing? I was working in a golf course. I was working at a ski lodge. I was just doing everything to hold on for the opportunity. And then finally, the offensive line coach, Stacy Searles, leaves and goes to Cincinnati, and I get hired as a full-time offensive line coach in 2001. So I started my career in 1997, and like I said, it was a restricted earnings coaching job for those number of years.
when you're going through those 4 years, your buddies that have already graduated, you got, I'm sure, guys, they're starting to make money, they're starting to live life, and then you got to be, which I think is incredible that you stood with it, because you start looking around, going, man, I could do that. I can make that, but you stayed with it.
I didn't want to
You
do
loved
anything
it.
else.
You loved this.
I loved it. I mean, there was nothing else I was going to do. And I was going to coach college football. I wasn't going to go coach high school football. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just didn't want to teach. I didn't want to be in the classroom. I wanted to coach ball. I wanted to recruit, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, too many people settle these days, and
They
you
get
didn't
so
settle.
impatient.
And no, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
It really is.
But the success comes when you follow your passion.
Yeah.
And Sean's a perfect example of that. Guys, you're enjoying another great episode with Coach Shawn Elliott of Georgia State football on the Shrimp Tank Charleston. We need to take a quick break, but we will be right back.
If you're like most successful business executives, you would probably rather stick your arm in a bucket of snakes than formulate a strategy for your insurance and financial needs. Who even understands estate planning, 401k plans, or key men insurance? We do. We are Double E, your virtual Chief Insurance and Financial Officer. Let us free you up to do more of what you do best and less of what we do better. Call 843-936-6352. EELLC.com. Securities offered through Fortune Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Elkin's Financial EE LLC and Fortune Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities.
Welcome back, guys, to the Shrimp Tank Charleston podcast. I'm your host, Eric Elkins, as well as founder and CEO of EE Insurance and Financial Solutions. I use the Shrimp Tank Charleston platform to continue elevating and enhancing not only my life, but also our clients' lives. So whether it's from networking or connecting our clients with our Shrimp Tank guests like a Coach Elliott, to opening doors for investment opportunities, to just learning from these overachievers. If you would like to schedule a call with myself or an advisor to learn more about how we help individuals and companies figure out the world of insurance, financial, and retirement solutions, then please email us at info@EELLC, the word double at another ELLC.com. We want to take care of you. All right, we're back with Shawn Elliott, the coach, and he was talking about his days at App State when he became the offensive line coach. And when that happens, is that when the winning and the national championship comes, and then you guys have you are a part of, in my opinion, two of the largest upsets of all time. One being App State beats Michigan, the Wolverines, at whatever that stadium's called, with 100,000 people.
Big house. Yeah.
The Big House.
Big house.
Yeah.
I should know that because my nephews go there or went there. And I'm just curious, when you guys go, do you still remember that day pretty clearly?
I do.
What was that like? Like, was that one of your national championship seasons?
Yes, that was our third national championship season. So we'd won 2 prior, back to back, and we were going into our third year in 2007, and we were really good. And
Is Tom Brady their quarterback?
He is not.
Who's
Chad Henne was the quarterback.
Oh,
there.
but he's
So
still.
Chad Henne, Mike Hart. They had the big left tackle. God, what's his name? Anyway, he was a first rounder.
Was Brady on the bench?
I think Brady
Had already gone?
yeah, he had already
Okay.
gone because I can remember vividly saying right after the game there, I was being interviewed by someone, and I said, wherever Tom Brady is today, he's saying the name Appalachian State.
Yeah, I remember that game, and it was all over the place how you beat them.
It was. We were clearly the better team. And that seems a little bit odd to say because we were a 1AA program. We had 65 scholarships to their 85, and it's just how can this team do it? But to be honest with you, we had very talented players. We had fast, we had hard-working players. We had people that all we knew how to do was win. That's it. We had a couple losses in those 2 prior seasons, but everyone knew how to win. They knew how to stay focused. They knew how to inspire one another to be great. And our team going into that game, we knew right away that we would be successful. Honestly, we did. And we only game planned about 2 weeks out for that team. And it was our opening contest. But we all knew going in, if we could hold up against their run game defensively, that we would score points offensively because we had just seen so many things that we could exploit from them defensively. I believe Ron English was their defensive coordinator, and we took it to them.
Yeah, and then in that crowd of 100,000, do you even hear them, or are they just chirping?
You heard them. I think their opening drive, they take the score and go up 7-0, and it's the opening day contest. They're a little bit rowdy, and after that, it was crickets, man.
What time was that game?
I can't be.
I remember you telling me one time
Noon
games suck.
It may have been a noon game, to be honest with you, because it was the first televised game on the Big Ten Network. So it may have been a noon contest. I believe it was a noon contest.
Yeah, which I remember you telling me one time, you're like, these noon games, man, it's you can be caught off guard on these games.
As a football coach, I love the noon game, but just because I like the afternoon to watch college football. Yeah, if I can get a game over with at 3:30 and get a nice victory, then you have a little bit of downtime to be a regular person, sit back and be a college football fan. As a player, playing at noon, you mean to tell me we've got to get up and have pregame meal 4 hours prior to our first? So we're eating at 8 a.m.? That ain't a whole lot of fun.
And your equilibrium's not on, a lot of times. Like when my boys have basketball games in these tournaments, they'll have like a 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning game. And all because of you, Sean, from you saying to me one time about the 12 o'clock game being just a killer. Give a shout out to my son Alec. A couple weeks ago, he had a 9 o'clock game in the morning. I woke him up at 6 o'clock. I said, we're going to go to Waffle House. You're going to get a good meal in. Your body's going to be awake before any of these other kids are going to be awake. And they're just not, they just won't be ready. And then he lit up for 25 points in that game. And so he bought into that idea. And then I had the opposite happen with my other one. He was like sleeping almost on the way to his early game. So
there's a lot of truth to that. I make reference to, excuse me, to getting up and getting a great shower. You got to get awake. You got to wake up. You got to inspire yourself.
I think you got to get up like Sean's dying right now. So
Drink some water.
One of the good things about coming on the Shrimp Tank is we've never had anyone like die on the show.
Right.
I think I'm good.
And so I'm just stalling until your throat's clear. Okay, and I don't want to forget because you not only had that upset at Michigan, but then you take Georgia State and completely upset a really good Tennessee volunteer team that when you were at Georgia State 2 years ago, was it?
Yeah.
And in another 110,000 place, and that that had to be just unbelievable.
I think I've been involved in probably
three of the biggest upsets in maybe college football history. Like I said, three of the biggest upsets in college football history. Yes, the number one is definitely Appalachian State over Michigan. Go to South Carolina in 2010. Played the University of Alabama. I think they won 35 straight. The number one ranked team in the country coming into Williams-Brice, and we defeated them that day 35-21, I believe it was. And then move on to Georgia State in 2019. And keep in mind, we're coming off a 2-10 record. A 2-10 record. But we were really just starting. It was my second season. We were just starting to build and implement everything that we needed to become a great football program. Going to Knoxville, and they were right for the picking. They wanted no part of us, and we were very good offensively. We played really good defensively that day and took it to them and really shocked. I mean, when I say shocked the world, I mean, it's amazing to think that what we did, but we did it in such a dominant fashion. They score with, I think, no time on the clock to make it a 38-31 game, but we really dominated them. It was,
Do you remember, out of those three games, did your teams win the next week?
yes.
They did.
Yes.
Because that's also unusual too. It's like you won the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and then they take the gas off the pedal.
I'm trying to remember at South Carolina, we may have fallen to Kentucky the next week. I think we did fall to Kentucky the following week. If not, the following week, the 2 weeks later. But yes, but the other teams just kept rolling.
Yeah, because that. All right, so we go from you get the job. Talk about the time when Spurrier reaches out to you and says, "I want you to come." What is that? What was that like? I mean, the legendary Steve Spurrier calls you on your cell phone.
He did.
What hey, Sean, this Steve Spurrier. Is that a good imitation?
Nervous?
Listen, I don't know how many of y'all have ever gotten a job by sending a resume. Probably not many of you. You know, it's probably who you know. I really had no intentions of getting that job. I didn't really know anyone. My brother calls me up and he says, "Hey, South Carolina's got an offensive line job. Send a resume down."
Oh, really? So Mitch is who really helped make that happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, he just told me, he's like, "What's it going to hurt?" And so I did. I did. And you know, when you win a few national championships and you play in the state of South Carolina, won a state championship, it causes attention. And one thing that did help a little bit, we had some conversations with John Gruden about our offense at Appalachian State. And I remember sending Coach Gruden a text, and I said, "Hey, Coach, if you don't mind, send Coach Spurrier a text that I mentioned in the O-line job." And I think he did. But that got him to look at my resume. And then I was sitting there. It was a couple days before Christmas. They were preparing for the Birmingham Bowl, and Coach Spurrier calls me up. And I keep in mind, I've got two small little kids, 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And they're running around the house. And summer's, you know, everything's going. It's chaos. And he's like, "Hey, Steve Spurrier here." And I was like, "Huh?" And I'm like, "What?" And I was like, "Shut up. Shut the kids up. Shut the kids up." Telling everybody to sit down, you know. And so he says, "I want you to come down for an interview." And I said, "Sure, when?" And he said, "I don't know what it was. Be here tomorrow." I said, "I'll be there." And I went down there. I interviewed with him.
Do you tell Coach Moore that this is happening, or you first just go?
It's I did tell Coach Moore it was happening. Coach Moore is in the hospital at this time, having double knee replacement.
Okay, and then he's going to soon have a heart attack because you're telling him this now.
But yeah, so Coach Spurrier brings me down. We interview such and such. They go and play in the bowl game. I am sitting there on my couch. It's snowing outside in Boone. The Gamecocks are getting shellacked. I mean, UConn is just beating them up and down. They're giving up sack after sack after sack. And in the third quarter, I sent him a text, Coach Spurrier, and I said, "I can help your football team." That's
really?
all I said. I said, "I can help your football team." Wake up, go to church the next morning. I come out from church, look at my cell phone, several missed calls. Turn to my wife somewhere. I said, "He's not calling to tell me I didn't get the job." So I finally called him back. He said, "How soon can you be here?" I said, "Well, it's about 3 hours to Columbia, but I'll be there in about an hour." And I called my parents, and I said, "I just got the offensive line job at South Carolina." And, of course, them being from Camden, South Carolina, Gamecock fans, they went nuts.
Oh, man.
I mean, and we drove down, and the rest is history.
What a story.
And then, okay, so are you kind of in that celebrity awe at the beginning because this is Coach Spurrier? I mean, is it?
So
yeah,
I'm going to share something with you, okay?
yeah. Go please.
All right.
Is this an exclusive? Because we only like to have exclusive.
This is exclusive. Very, very few people know this.
Good, good.
So I am so nervous to go meet with Coach Spurrier, the legend, I mean,
You've gotten the job, or
no? I'm going to interview.
okay?
I called my mom up. I said, "There is no way I'm going to sit in front of one of the greatest college football coaches of all time and not sweat." I said, "I'm just telling you, I'm going to be so nervous." I said, I've got to do this tomorrow. I said, I've got to get something. Call a doctor. Call something. She goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, call Dr. Whatever." And he prescribed me I don't know what he prescribed me, but to take one pill for my interview. And I did. And I went over, and I remember walking out there. I was like, I cannot believe I did not drop
You didn't sweat at all.
an ounce of sweat sitting in front of the greatest college football head coach of all
And
time.
was it everything you thought it was going to be like in the interview, or nothing like it?
It was actually just like Jerry Moore would have conducted it. We sat around. It wasn't a whole bunch of X's and O's. It was just really getting a good feel for one another and making sure that I was a fit. Him trying to really, I guess, understand my run game or what I could bring to the table if I were going to be the run game coordinator and the offensive line coach or whatever it may be. And I watched practice. I remember going over the draw, just the draw play. And I remember telling him it was the most underappreciated plays in all of college football. And he kind of liked that. And like I said, the next thing I know, I'm getting a call on Sunday after that bowl game. But, yeah, I was so nervous. I mean, I was really.
Oh, I mean, and then I'll never forget when you guys drove into in our neighborhood where we all lived. And for those of you, we lived in a neighborhood in Columbia at the time that had maybe 10 homes total. And Sean ends up renting the house next door to mine. And I remember clear as day, your wife had no desire to live in Columbia, South Carolina. Summer is so awesome, but change is not the easiest thing for her. And you're as happy as can be because, I mean, your career is, elevating like crazy. But you got a wife who's scared as hell. So I'm curious because you get this opportunity, and you really haven't thanked me enough for introducing my wife to your wife, because my wife did help a lot, help your wife kind of ease into this life. But that's not about my life. It's not about me.
I mean, it is a little bit about I remember us driving through the neighborhood, and your exact words were, "This place is utopia." That's what you said to us.
That's what I said?
That's what you said. You said, it's incredible. He was like, the people that live here, the kids, the streets, it's just, we all are, and I was like, perfect. And my wife, we were moving from Boone, North Carolina, and thank the Lord we did, because it changed our entire lives. I mean, and she meets Jen, and then the cul-de-sac becomes, I guess, an afternoon lounge chair, magazine
Alcohol.
reading, alcohol.
That's awesome.
You kids stay out of the road. We don't know where you're going. Hey, where are we going to the Hans tonight?
Oh, it was a nonstop party. And the one thing I'll never forget is when you first, I don't know if it was when you moved in, I was in my car. Jen was driving. She was driving. I was in the passenger seat, and I'll never forget. I'm like, because I never let her drive. And I was like, he's going to think I'm like some weak man that my wife is driving. She's got the power. I have no power. Nothing against people who allow their wives to drive, but I'm just not that guy. And I'm like, hon, I told you I should have been driving. And I got so fixated on the fact that I was like, he's not even gonna think I'm a man. And
we found out very quickly you were the man.
yeah, thanks.
You were the man. You were the man.
All right, so you go and South Carolina really, I want to give you credit here. The whole environment there, they start winning. They were winning like 7 games, and then all of a sudden it's now going to the 11 game. Why do you think that change happened beyond just getting some really good recruits? Why do you think that changed? Like, what do you recall anything in particular that made the change that was instrumental?
I can tell you this. Players make the teams. And I want you to understand the players, and we had really good players. We came in, or I guess I could say I came in 2010. I came in with Marcus Lattimore. I think Connor Shaw came in early that spring. So I was coming in with a very skilled set of players. And it just so happens that what I was bringing in, my offensive run game philosophy, we were going to run a little bit of zone read. We had a mobile quarterback. Steven Garcia was the quarterback, but Connor Shaw was eventually going to take over. Marcus Lattimore was the running back phenom. He was the number 1 running back in the country. And then here I am, some little guy from Appalachian State coming to be the O-line coach that really didn't care about anything except winning. And it was a perfect fit. Marcus had an unbelievable season. We took off and started scoring points offensively. And I will tell you this, we got better on the offensive line. I mean, we just did.
So tell me a little bit, like you're coming in as a new coach, right? Do you bring that intensity right away with your players,
Yes.
or try to feel them out? How does that?
Listen, if you know me,
I watch videos
I
and
don't
stuff. Yeah.
hold anything back.
Yeah.
I say about what I want to say anytime I want to say it. I don't change the way I act for anyone. So yes, I walk in there and I remember spring practice and I mean, literally, I want to be a player. And one of the greatest things I always tell recruits that come to Georgia State is, if I wanted to today, I can go locker in that locker room right beside our players today. I'm not the head football coach. I'm just the same as one of them. So I want to prepare, and I want to go into battle just like those guys are going into battle. So I took it in there just like that. They responded. Half the battle is getting people to play hard, and they wanted to play hard.
I can definitely attest to that. I mean, the guys, you can, if anybody doesn't know who Coach Shawn Elliott is, and that's SHAWN. If you don't know who that gentleman is, just Google that name, and you will see some intense videos of him headbutting his players with their helmets on. He has no helmets. He might get, he might have, what's it called, the head thing?
Concussion?
Yeah, CTE. Oh. He might have CTE in a couple years, but
I've got that now.
But other than that, the guy has got passion like you've never seen before, and so it's always been there. And definitely don't give him any ounce of liquor. He can drink beer. Don't give him any liquor, or you could be in some trouble.
With my wife too.
So things are winning. But you really attest to the players are just so important. The talent of the player is so important.
Yes, it certainly is. But it's just like with anything else. You got to have a cohesive coaching staff. We really got along great as a staff. When I walked in there, it was really not a bunch of egos. We really just, and it is like that now with me at Georgia State. It was like that with me at South Carolina. It was definitely like that at Appalachian State. It's like a bunch of guys just going to hang out at the club all day.
So you're saying that if it was an environment of coaches that are all like jockeying to be the head offensive coordinator, or I want to move and go over to this, I want to go to Georgia to be their coach or whatever.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
And have you seen that side of the? Have you been in that environment before, where guys are really just jockeying?
You know, I've been very fortunate not to have been in that environment. I've only had 3 jobs, and this is going to be my 26th year.
Wow.
And that's very unusual in college coaching. At Appalachian State, we didn't even have an offensive coordinator. Scott Satterfield, myself, our staff, we put together a game plan. We knew exactly what we wanted to run and how we wanted to run it against what defenses. We didn't care who called the play. We knew what play we were going to call. And it was kind of just like that at South Carolina. Coach Spurrier was the offensive coordinator, but, you know, we were all the guys in the room putting together the game plan. It was just, hey, these are the plays you need to call against this defense at this time, and let's go with it. And we never had big ego issues. We really didn't. And then at Georgia State, that's the culture that I've created. You know, when I'm the head coach, I can bring those types of individuals in. If there is a circumstance where I do bring in the wrong individual, he's not there very long, because I'm going to remove him, because it's not about those guys. If you win, you're going to get credit. I mean, that's the bottom line. So why not let's do this all together? Let's go out and win, and we all become successful and move up in this world.
I'm with
That's
you.
great.
I'm with you. So when you're at South Carolina, your career's going great. You're recruiting. You're winning. We're drinking a lot.
Yeah.
And especially after
Big
these
wins.
games, there's a lot of discussion after. And you become a hot topic. And you're getting pursued by a lot of different organizations, whether it's college or even professional. I remember you getting the inquiry from the Steelers about coming and being there, and about being their offensive line coach. And I said, dude, you got to go and interview. Of course, you didn't listen.
I didn't listen to you.
And then you also had the opportunity at Alabama to go and be with Saban. Talk about that situation when you get the call from Saban. He's your offensive coordinator, offensive line coach. I can't remember, at Carolina, and Saban wants you to come.
Yes. He, you know, I can remember exactly where I was when I got the call. I was actually here in Charleston. We were on our Charleston retreat with our Carolina coaching staff, and got the call that he wanted me to come interview. And at that point in time, I didn't know what to think. You know, it's Nick Saban. You know, you got Steve Spurrier, you got Nick Saban. I mean, God, I'm like the luckiest man in the world here. I'm like, what's going on? Coach
And then
Saban.
do you feel like you're cheating on your wife? Because
Yeah.
Spurrier is like, y'all are having dinner.
Yeah, we were.
And Spurrier's like, hey, we're having a great time here, and blah, blah. And then all you're in your mind is, well, Saban wants me to come over tonight, but you want me to come over. I mean, is that, like, is it so uncomfortable? Like, do you even enjoy that trip at all? Because you're just thinking to yourself, what am I doing here?
It was really a rush. I mean, it was a rush. I was like, Nick Saban's calling me, you know? It's like, wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it all went down, but the following week, he wants to bring me down. I can't remember exactly what day it was, a Thursday or Friday. And I remember I called Coach Spurrier, and I was trying to get in touch with him to let him know I was going to go interview, because that's what you supposed. You need to let him know ahead of time, get everything out in the open. And Coach Spurrier didn't answer the phone, and so I kept calling him. And he didn't answer, and so I left a message. I said, Coach Spurrier, I really need to talk to you as soon as you can. Can you call me back? And so he calls me back the next day, and I had already boarded a flight and flown to Alabama. I was there interviewing, and I had to tell Coach Spurrier that I was interviewing for Alabama, and I was already there interviewing.
And this is probably like his arch nemesis. Like, that son of a bitch doesn't deserve the national championships that he's won. If I had that facility and blah, 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 I would have won that many too.
Yeah.
And your moment when you go and have that interview with Saban, and I remember you went to his lake house, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and
or his house, yeah. Had dinner.
And you had a great time.
I really, it was a long day. I remember I go in there, I interview with Joe Pendry, which is kind of like the overseer of the offensive line. It was kind of like an older coach that was an analyst, but he really oversaw the offensive line. So I watched a game with him, and we talked through some things, and then we had a huge staff interview that I had to sit in front of the staff and do some.
So
other
like
stuff.
Kirby Smart is there.
Every one of them. They're all sitting in this.
Who is it then? I can't remember. I remember Kirby Smart.
Oh God, Kirby Smart. I don't recall the offensive coordinator's name. I really don't.
Was Lane Kiffin there?
No, Lane
no,
was not
that later. Yeah. But Kirby's there.
Kirby's there. Kirby, because I mean, Kirby actually called me the day after I left, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna do it."
And I told him, by the way, I said you need to take this job, and he didn't listen to me there either.
Well, he
never listened to anything I said.
So here's the thing about taking jobs, and I hope everybody kind of understands this. So I think quality of life is one of the number one things that in any profession, if you can have a great quality of life, if you can be happy, have a successful career, your family's successful, and things are going really well, if you've got happiness, what are you searching for? I mean,
God, I wish I could be more like that.
I mean, I honestly, and I've done this on several occasions. I've got everything I need. We're happy. Why is it going to make me any more happier to go coach at Alabama? Coaching for Steve Spurrier was the greatest job I could have ever had. He was a great family man. We enjoyed each other. We had a lot of great times, and we were winning, and we were good. And I said, why would I do that for another 100,000? 100,000 is not going to make me any more happier, you know.
I can't imagine what Summer would have had to deal with. Imagine moving.
Well, I remember I called her when I went to interview. The actual entire day ended about midnight, so I was there all day. And I called her about 12:15 that night, and she's like, "Is this what it's going to be like if you go work?" And I said, "Probably so." And I flew back, and one of the craziest things, Coach Spurrier calls me. I'm sitting on a flight. Coach Saban calls me at the same time. I'm sitting on the flight.
You should have three-wayed that together. Said, "Hey, Steve, you there? Nick, y'all together? Okay, I'm here with you. It's so I have Steve, Nick, and myself on the line. And I was gonna I thought we could come together on this.
And
They never really. They're not really buddies, correct? I mean, they're not.
I don't think so. I think.
I mean, they're cordial.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're friends or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember Coach Spurrier saying, "I want to know what you're going to do," and vice versa. And I hadn't even really spoken to my wife about what I was going to do. You know, that's. I think she was really upset at the fact that I didn't, because, you know, you try to make decisions the best interest for your family, so you need all the input that you can. And I sat on that plane for about 15 more minutes, and I decided I'm not going to Alabama. I decided I'm staying at the University of South Carolina. I remember driving up, Jen and Summer are sitting in the old cul-de-sac in their chairs. I had not even told my wife, and I believe when I walked up, I said, "I'm not doing it." And they were both sitting there. Yeah, she was like, "What? Wait, we haven't even talked about it." And it all worked out.
You know, I think you gave a great. I always say the people give nuggets on the Shrimp Tank Charleston, and I feel like you gave one of the best nuggets that anyone's ever given. And it's a hard life for me personally to live, which is the nugget that you said, I'm already happy. I already have a great quality of life. And now I'm going to it's like you're married and you're in such a good marriage, but there's another woman over here that's promising the world and this and that. And it's like, well, I already have it all. What do I need to do? And so many, including myself, we just forget, like, is it so much better? Because the money's one thing, but you would have been working ridiculous hours, I'm sure. It would have been pretty brutal. It's a nice piece on your resume.
Sure. And then,
but it wasn't meant to be.
No. And I'm like I said, I'm so happy where I am now. I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to become the interim head coach at the University of South Carolina and lead the Gamecocks. And then now here I am at Georgia State. I've got the greatest job in the world.
I agree.
I mean, I really do. I've got a wonderful football team. I've got a great university. I've got an administration that backs me. And, everybody keeps saying, or I say everyone, oh, you're gonna get a Power 5 job soon. I'm like, for what? Yeah, it'd be great. There was some interest, but man, I'm living the dream right now.
Yeah, and you're doing what you love to do. Go ahead, Gus. I'm sorry.
No, I was just. What about the Steelers? We're both Steelers fans. I'm from Pittsburgh. We got a lot of PA listening.
Wow.
He didn't even give them. He said, Tomlin, I don't have time for you. I mean, he shut that thing down.
So here's another story.
But that's a franchise that really doesn't turn over their coaches. I mean, they had 3 coaches their whole franchise. They don't like to have turnover there. So they kind of have your same philosophy. It correlates,
I get a call from actually an assistant coach up there for the Steelers, and he says, I didn't know him. He said, Coach Tomlin wants to talk to you about the offensive line job here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm like, wait a second, 3 years ago I was at Appalachian State. Now I got a chance to go coach the Steelers.
I was making $13,000 for him.
So, I went through this whole ordeal in the next a couple of weeks. And I remember Coach Spurrier, I told him, I was just like, hey, maybe an interest from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he's like, Sean, you don't want to coach in the NFL ball. That's not a coaching up there, stuff like that. And then my wife, she point blank, she goes, I'm not living in Pittsburgh. And I mean, I said, the Pittsburgh Steelers? She goes, I'm not living in Pittsburgh. I said, all right, there you go.
Yeah,
so I called. So he bought the flight. I was with Coach Spurrier, our running backs coach. We were in South Georgia. And I remember walking out of the hall, getting on my phone, and calling Coach Tomlin and said, Coach Tomlin, man, I really do appreciate it, but I'm not coming up there tomorrow. And I mean, I have no idea. I'm sure he was shocked.
He was probably indoors wearing sunglasses.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, it was another story.
I want to share an exclusive story. So when he was going through all this, and I was helping Sean would not get an agent at the time, so I was basically helping him try to negotiate certain things for him. So one of the things that I did, and I don't mind saying this now, is I dripped, and I even called. I don't remember the radio station. I called, and there was all this talk about Sean potentially going to Alabama, and then as that was cooling off, then I called the radio station and then leaked and pretended to be someone and said that Coach Rich Rodriguez, who had become the head football coach at the University of Arizona, was going to hire Shawn Elliott. It's been rumored that he's going to hire Shawn Elliott to be his offensive coordinator because they got to know each other. Rich came down to App State or something.
We went to West Virginia.
Okay. Yeah. So Sean went to West Virginia to learn Rich Rodriguez's offense or something while he was at App. So I told this whole bullshit story to the radio station, and then that started to leak, and ultimately it just gave you got a raise. You got a raise out of all this stuff.
I mean, the raise was because we were winning.
No, it was that Rich Rodriguez fake story that I came up with.
And by the way, we played Louisiana Monroe, and Rich Rodriguez was actually the offensive coordinator for Louisiana Monroe this past year.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's what that's where he is now.
He is at. He just got the head job at Jacksonville State. We beat him by 50, so he didn't score too many.
Yeah, he God, West Virginia to Michigan to Arizona. I mean, they just do not like. People don't like him.
I don't know.
And I think he had some issues with keeping his zipper closed or something. I could be wrong.
I know nothing about that.
Guys, you're listening to the Shrimp Tank Charleston podcast. We're sitting here talking to Coach Shawn Elliott. He's telling some great past stories, and we're going to get into a couple things about where he is today, as well as we got some questions from some of the subscribers that I look forward to getting into. But we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Attention. Do you own a whole life or universal life insurance policy? Were you told to expect a big tax-free nest egg at retirement, or that dividends will pay for the policy instead of you? Agents frequently sell products like this that are profitable for them, but not for you. Let Double E audit your policy at no cost. Call now to find out how Double E Insurance and Financial Solutions can help you. 843-936-6352. DoubleELLC.com. Securities offered through Fortune Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Elkin's Financial, Double E LLC, and Fortune Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities.
Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to the Shrimp Tank Charleston Show. I'm your host, Eric Elkins, and we have been enjoying this conversation with Coach Shawn Elliott, the head ball coach at Georgia State down in Atlanta, Georgia. If you got a son that's got potential to play in college and you want to go play for someone that's going to enhance your son's life, not only in football but in real life, then you should really consider talking to Coach Elliott, because that's what's going to happen. And your son's going to have a great time. Enough about that. I mean, I can brag. Shawn's one of the greatest guys I've ever met, and I consider him a great, great friend, even though he goes back and forth between Atlanta, Columbia, and I live in Charleston now, but we're always going to be together. And I always think of you because your birthday is the same day of my father's birthday, who was very fond of you as well. So we were talking about this whole career and these great stories about how you've lived this great life. And people don't really realize, one, how hard it is to just be a head coach at anything. I mean, let alone in college, let alone in high school. I mean, I'm curious your take on the whole thing going on right now with the money being paid to players. The NIL, is that what it's called? The NIL? Yeah. NIL. NIL, and the whole recruiting process that, like, you know, you have a huge presence on social media. I don't know if other coaches have this much of like that's obviously part of your program to relate to these kids. I mean, comparing recruiting today versus what it was when you were a GA, I mean, how hard is it to get these kids to come and play for you?
Well, it has certainly changed a great deal for a lot of programs and for a lot of coaches. I'm going to sit here today and I'm going to tell you it hasn't changed for me. I still recruit the players that want to play the game of football because they want to play it because they're competitive, they want to win, they want to be successful, and they want to have that opportunity to enhance their future by an education and then possibly go on and play in the professional level. And I don't promise them anything, but a lot of hard work, a lot of doggone, a lot of struggle, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of selfish, having to be so unselfish. And I don't stroke them like a lot of people stroke these young men today.
How often do you think these kids are lied to about?
Every day. Every single conversation. They're lied to about, the family environment here at our university. Oh, we're going to have these NIL deals for you. There is a lie coming out of a mouth of a coach every minute of every day. And I mean, it's crazy. And it's harder now for the coach, and it's not so much lying. They're just trying to enhance their position with the guy.
So how often is it where a call comes, you're on the phone with, let's pretend like I'm the recruit. You're on the phone with me and I say, hey, Coach, I was just talking to Coach X, and, he said that he sees me as the starting tight end next year, and then they see me potentially, going on and being an NFL prospect, and so I'm just not sure I see that. I mean, like, how often is it where you're having to negotiate with an 18-year-old?
I typically don't have to negotiate with the 18-year-old. What we typically have to do is negotiate with a family, or negotiate with the runner that has 30 kids from Atlanta that he's dealing out to every college coach in the country. That's who you have to get in the negotiations with. The kid is the easiest part. It's the other guys, the runners, the handlers that really make the recruiting process just awful. I mean, it's really just awful. The day I mean, in this day and age, you're very rarely sitting down with the mom and the dad and the player,
Really?
and talking about recruiting. I mean, you may do it when they come on the official visit, but recruiting has gotten to be where everyone's got somebody representing them, and I can get you this player, I can get you that player. A lot of times the high school coach is even taken out of the recruiting, which is crazy. I mean, that's probably the number one point person you should be talking with is the high school head football coach about the player you're recruiting and what type of person he is. But, in this day and age, it's they've almost taken the head football coach out of it because they have so many other people that are maneuvering from behind in the back rows, trying to position their quote unquote star recruits about where to go.
That has to be tough. I mean, if you're trying to gel this team with hard workers, gritty,
that's why I said that I'm still I'm a lot different. And they walk in my office, I don't promise them anything. If my assistant coaches really don't, they don't like me saying it any longer. I'm like, hey, if the guy wants to come play for me and you and help build us this program and has a great attitude and he wants an education, come on. If he don't, I don't care. He can go somewhere else. And I'm like, oh, coach is a really good player. There's a lot of good players out there. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like selling your soul to the devil. Let's go get this kid that thinks he's the greatest player of all time. He's been promised, and everybody's been stroking him on his back, and he's forgotten how to work hard. He's forgotten how to play hard. He's forgotten how to be a great teammate. The values that once stood in sports are all dying by the wayside. It's a shame to see.
What about this NIL thing? I don't see. I just don't see how that is a healthy thing for the future of college athletics. I personally don't see it because I don't see how you can. It just seems so corrupt. It's just now you're getting the boosters so much more involved. What's your take on it?
Well, let me start off by saying I totally agree. I think these players need some compensation other than the education they get. I mean, they do. But for the NIL to take off the way it's taken off and to have players are being poached from other teams because there's boosters posting NIL deals for upwards of $3, $4, $5 million with housing, cars, parents, promises. How do you compete with that? I mean, take Georgia State, for example. How do we go compete against someone that has a booster that's offering a player on our roster something to leave that we can't provide? It's dirty, but we knew it all was going to unfold the way it has. And now I think the NCAA has now made rules trying to go back on their initial ruling where they're trying to eliminate the booster in the NIL deals. Because if you don't, let's just say Texas A&M, for example, and there's rumors out there they just bought the recruiting class and things of that nature through all their boosters. We all understand they have great money men and women out there that are functioning these quote unquote NIL deals to bring the greatest recruits there. And it's hard. It's hard because I like to think of a game as being an equal and a fair game. You play it to win, you play it to have fun, and I just don't know how much fun it is to be in the market where you have to go buy your team. It's why I'm not a professional football coach.
Yeah, well, if you are, again, this is a great commercial. If you're one of those star football players that is trying to figure out where you should go, you're hearing it from a coach that's telling you and telling your parents and telling whoever you're having in front of them that you're probably not getting told a lot of times a true story, and so you really should pay attention to it because in the long run it's not going to help you. If you're looking at it from a short-term perspective, yeah, maybe it is. I want to go, before I get into the questions from the listeners that sent in, I wanted to ask you this question. I'm curious. When you became interim head coach at the University of South Carolina, Spurrier steps down, and you step in, but it's kind of like you're stepping in personally to a program that has cancer, and you're supposed to hopefully stop the cancer from spreading. That's maybe the way I would put it. And it's not an easy job to stop cancer. If you had a mulligan and you could go back, knowing what you went through then, and you went in, what would you do different today if you had the mulligan?
That's a really good question.
Another great question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a journalist. I'm not just a CEO of an insurance financial company.
You are doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
It's hard, when you become the interim head coach, and I became it in such a different way than most people do. Our head football coach resigned mid-season. I'm not talking like I was going to be the interim head coach for a bowl game. I was going to be the interim head coach for 8 weeks. We had 6 more contests, and there was still a lot that could have happened in how you did things, and I was very green. And you don't go to school to learn how to become an interim head coach after a coach resigns mid.
They don't have that class.
No, I didn't take that.
Guys, the next class, the next chapter is interim head coaching. We're going to go over that. It could happen.
Yeah, but to answer your question, I changed a little bit of the roster. I let some guys go that I needed to let go, so I certainly wouldn't change that. I would probably have changed some of the coaching staff. I would have made some moves there.
Would you have been? Could you have even done that in hindsight? Like, if you felt like a coach was not in the right, would you have issues with the board of trustees? And
at that point in time, I thought I was fired anyway. So what did I care what they thought?
So you could have done that without having.
I think I could have.
Yeah.
I really do. Like I said, we all knew. I think everybody on that staff got let go except for myself. So, I would have made some changes to that coaching staff. It's hard to go and not that I maybe removing some and just not having some around or whatever it could have been, but you got coaches out there to know them they're let go.
Yeah, and then the players, I would got to think interim head coach players are already deflated. You're already losing.
Yeah.
And then
that's why when you saw me take over, I kind of brought, if there's one thing I could change, it was the energy. So I brought my energy, my enthusiasm, everything that I could bring to those players to get them excited about playing these contests. Because it's hard to go out there and know, hey, your head coach just quit on you. You got a bunch of other coaches that are coaching. They really don't care because they're not going to be here in 8 weeks. They're all let go. And, what do I have to do other than just my pride? Let's go out and compete and try to
Did
win.
you have those candid conversations with them? Did you say what you just said, or would you go back now and say, listen, your coach is probably not going to be here? So
I did not say that. I really didn't because, at that point in time, I was – my plan was to be the next head coach at the University of South Carolina. If you would ask me, I was going to go win the next 6 games, and I was going to move one flight up and take over that spot. So I wouldn't have said that at that point in time. But I think I could have made different moves in the coaching staff, and some guys just wrote it out for 8 weeks, and some guys didn't. Some guys really pushed and helped me try to hold it all together, and some guys were bitter, and there's a bunch of finger pointing and things of that nature. So it wasn't that cohesive staff that you would have liked to have had or needed to have to be successful. We did improve. We just didn't improve enough. We lost a lot of close games. And
probably helped you, though, prepared to be the head coach at Georgia State. It's always a lesson learned from all that kind of stuff. You don't have the backing of your executives. You don't have the backing of your coaches. And everyone's out for themselves. You said it earlier. It ain't going to work.
No, it's not going to work. very unique position. It did teach me a lot of things. I've been the head coach going into my 6th season at Georgia State, and probably because of that situation right there, nothing has ever surprised me at Georgia State. Not one situation, not with a player, not with a coach, not with some in-game circumstance, a decision that I made. Nothing has surprised me. I've not been caught off guard by anything that's happened, which is very unusual. I mean, every single day I wake up and I'm like, so what's fixing to happen here? Something's going to happen that I'm not going to be prepared for. And not that I'm not prepared for, but, that I'm going to need a little bit of help with.
How often, or what is to prepare for a true game on Saturday? What entails that? I mean, outside of practice and stuff, I didn't really get it until becoming friends with you. This chess game of knowing if they run this, we got to do that. And this is because the matchups are crucial in this whole thing, in your whole job. Like, give a quick picture of what is it like to prep for game day or for the game in the upcoming week.
Just the opponent? I mean, it's difficult, very difficult. Not so as much for us as an offensive system. We know what we do. We know how we do it. We know what we like to do it. That doesn't change. Defenses haven't changed. So unless they add another player to the field, we've seen about everything we know we're going to see. So as long as we've been together and we've got, like I said, a really cohesive staff, we can make quick adjustments and say, all right, we need to run this. They're lined up in this. We need to run this. Defensively, you've got to prepare for everything. I mean, you've got to and we try to say don't prepare for everything, just the most important things. And so you try to limit those things and limit what they're best at potentially. But then you get some coordinators that they want to defend it all. They want to defend every single play they've run. You've got to run it multiple times in various situations. The players have to be really intelligent about down and distance, field position. Sometimes quarters of the game make a difference in when plays are run. So you got to be really well educated. I think to win football this day and age, you have to be more educated in the classroom, in the meeting room, than you do actually out there on the practice field. Once you have your system in place, your players know how to practice, they know what you're doing, then I think the education in the meeting room is far more important than the actual preparation on the field. Wow. Because we basically practice twice a week. On Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, we barely do anything. We don't even put any pads on. We put tennis shoes on. We go out there and we kind of do a walkthrough. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we practice. It's what we're learning in the meeting rooms that really makes us the team we are.
Which also is got to be difficult to get these kids, these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, to stay focused. Because, us guys, we have ADD. We all have ADD.
Yes.
Like, do y'all just pass around like Ritalin and Adderall and Vyvanse and just say, here, y'all take this?
Listen, we try. No, we don't.
That's what I would do as head coach.
You've got to shorten practices. You've got to shorten meetings. You've got to make things very, very interesting. Man, I love music. We play music. We have
you
music.
Dance too. You're a good dancer.
I'm not a good dancer. Maybe after some of them,
Yeah,
late-night
you're doing your
wins.
thing.
But you've got to create something that they're enthused about doing. Otherwise, you lose them. So if it's the team meeting, I mean, I have my dogs in our offices. I mean, something's different going on there every single day. My office is like a rock concert at 6:30 in the morning. Our team meeting is like a rock concert. Our practice is like a rock concert. Sometimes I'll stop practice and we'll have a competitive drill, maybe a one-on-one drill. Last year we had one-on-one golf swings. Who could hit the golf ball through the goalpost during practice? Threw out a doggone club and a ball, and I said, hey, I need a D lineman, number 90, you're up here, 56, you're up here. Let's see who can hit it. And it was during Masters Week. And so we're just creating different things to keep these guys enthused. I don't like going out there and doing the same thing every single day. It's monotonous and it's boring, to tell you the truth. Really boring. It may be a day I may roll out there. We may be 5 minutes into practice, and I blow the whistle up and say, "Hey, we're going to scrimmage the rest of the day. We're not practicing. Let's just go play." And they get all fired up, and the attitudes change and whatnot.
Gus, you got the questions from these subscribers from all over the world that are dying to hear from Coach Shawn Elliott of the Georgia State Panthers. I love the all blue uniforms that y'all go
Yes.
with. I love that, man.
Yes.
I like the
they're
unis.
nice, man. Yeah. All right, let's go here. So
Big game blue.
first one we have Jim from Blowing Rock, North Carolina.
Okay.
That's probably Jim Harrison.
Probably so.
Coach, is it true that Eric Elkins was your agent while you were in the University of South Carolina? And he is the man you most admire even today.
Oh God!
Well,
jeez, these questions.
He was the Jim. That's a great question.
Thanks, Jim, for that question. Go ahead, please answer.
Eric was the agent behind the scenes. You notice I didn't pay him, so I didn't follow his advice. And so here I am today where I am. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate that. I should have paid you a little bit more.
No, it's fine.
But Eric, I mean, what was that second part of that question?
Do you admire it?
Oh, do I admire Eric? I mean, I'm sitting here looking at an In Touch Weekly, and he's laying on top of his Mercedes, and it says who's hot and who's not, in his nice polo 3-button undressed shirt.
Oh, my
I think it's one of the, God, I mean, can we just get a little peek at that right
we
there?
gotta see that.
That right
Look at
there. Oh, Jen.
guys,
Jen.
come on. This isn't about me.
Actually, I photoshopped Jen out of this picture when I gave it to her. She was laying right beside him.
Let's go to the next
all right,
question.
all right,
Let's go to the next question. Kristen, please don't screen the questions before you do these.
Robbie from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. What one thing comes to mind on what you learned from working under Coach Legends, Jerry Moore and Coach Spurrier, that you instill today?
Jerry Moore, do more than what's expected. You know, he would always tell us the whole world's full of average. So if you want to be better than everyone else, just do a little bit more on everything you do. I think Coach Spurrier is just creativity. Have fun, enjoy it. Really don't give a crap what people think. If you believe in it, go out and achieve it. And those are the two most important things I took for those guys. I really did.
Good stuff.
That's
Good
great.
question, Robbie.
So we got Frank from Miami, Florida. That's a new one, Miami.
Frank?
Never had anybody call from.
Yeah.
I was just down in Miami. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe you made some
I
headlines.
saw Frank at the Heat game.
Oh yeah, that's probably Frank.
So two questions here.
Frank Raleigh, Pat's brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two questions here. First one, out of all the years you have coached, who would you say was the most gifted athlete or freak of an athlete? And then second to that,
Hold on. Let him answer that
Okay,
one.
I'll
Let
let
him
you-
answer that one.
All right.
Who's the best?
Sorry, Frank.
Who is the best, most talented athlete you have witnessed as a coach or what we call freak athlete, Frank? Is that correct? I think that's how Frank's asking.
Freak of an athlete. Yeah.
I think the greatest player that I've ever coached is Armani Edwards. He was a quarterback for us at Appalachian State, team that beat Michigan. He was an unbelievable. I think he was a 3-time All-American Player of the Year in the FCS division. Went on to play in the NFL, Canadian Football League. The biggest freak, Jadeveon Clowney. No question about it.
Defensive end, Jadeveon Clowney for the University of South Carolina.
So big.
Without a doubt, the greatest athlete freak of a man I've ever witnessed. I will never witness another man like him.
He was that good.
He was that freak of a player. When he wanted to control things, he could control them.
It's that he's had a good career, but
Decent
he's
NFL,
not. He's
yeah.
not to the level he. I always feel like he just doesn't
There's some
always get
people-
the steam,
There's some people that have a desire to be the greatest, and there's some people that don't.
but he has the tools.
He is the greatest athlete freak I've ever seen. Question, and there's no doubt about it.
You heard that, Jadeveon. Not Eric Elkins, it's you.
There you go, Frank. So his second question, who have you coached that was so talented but never lived up to the hype?
Oh wow.
There's someone popping in your mind right now, but you're scared to say it. You don't want to hurt that person's feelings.
Yeah.
It's okay. You need to. They need to know.
You know, it's I might have to go right back with Jadeveon Clowney because, like I said, I've never witnessed anything as powerful, as strong, as athletic, with speed. I mean, he could have been the greatest. I mean, he could still be the greatest player ever in the history of this sport. And for whatever reason, he's just not. And that's so unfortunate because I've seen him on days, when you have to practice against him, and he says, all right, I'm going to turn it up. Man, we could have put an army there. It wouldn't have mattered. But it's the turning it up part that, you got to turn it up every play.
That's a great question.
And every off season and every spring practice.
You ever talk to him now or run into him?
I ran into him. I went and watched him play the Texans and Jacksonville Jaguars. I had an offensive lineman, A.J. Cann, got some tickets. And me and Max went down there a few years ago, and I saw Jadeveon on the sideline, and he ran over and big old hug. And, and he's a great guy. I mean, he is, like I said, he is got a big personality and just, fell a little short.
Coaches love him. I mean,
they probably see what Sean sees. Probably get frustrated.
If you're a coach, you love the hardest worker. You are the best players that are the hardest workers that want everything for your team. That's who we
a good
love.
answer. Yeah.
That's who we love.
But I think he's a 3-time All-Pro or something. I mean, he's
Yeah,
had
college,
he's had a good career. It's just I've always heard that he was so special. He should be if he's been in the league for 8 years or something, he should be an 8-time Pro Bowl.
Well, he should have been Defensive Player of the Year.
Agreed.
Every single year. And I've seen a lot of NFL players, and I've never seen one as talented as him.
Who's the best offensive line guy that you've ever coached?
The best offensive lineman I've ever coached is a guy by the name of Scott Suttle. Scott Suttle was a walk-on linebacker at Appalachian State. He was a 5'11", 255-pound center that we moved to the offensive line, and he was a straight boy dog. He would tear anybody up.
He make it to the NFL?
Hell no. At
Just
5'11", he's freaking smaller than hell.
Your fullback, I think it's your fullback
We don't have a fullback.
or tailback
He's our
last year,
tailback.
the white guy.
Yeah.
Man, he's a beast.
Tucker Gregg, the hardest worker on our football team.
Oh my God!
Hands down.
Is he with you this year?
Yes.
Coming? Oh my
Yes.
God! Have you ever seen this guy?
No.
This guy he's like a John Riggins.
Oh, he's every bit of John Riggins. Every bit of it. He's special now. You want to mold yourself. You got a son that wants to come watch
him.
somebody work, watch somebody study, and watch somebody play.
Well, we're gonna come to a game.
Man,
give him. Somebody needs to give him some NIL money because that boy can run. He'll bulldoze.
Where's he from? What?
He's from just right up there in Georgia, right above us. God, he's so special. I mean, he is a freaking. I don't know. I love that guy.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I loved him.
We got a lot of guys like him, and he walked on for us. This guy, when we didn't even recruit him. He's one of those guys where he was average in high school, but a guy who was just working so hard. He would send us Twitter messages every single workout
Really?
and show us his workouts, and he would say, "You can't be legendary without leg day," and he would show us. And he'd be squatting like 600 pounds and just doing all this crazy stuff, and I would always I'd be like, delete, delete, and then he comes down and
That's a great story, man.
I love that guy,
and he's going to make it. I think he's going to have a career in the NFL. Personally, I really do.
I don't know.
Can he catch? I know he can run.
He can do it all. He
All
can
right.
do it all.
Y'all need to, because I'm endorsing this guy. You need to draft him when he's eligible, but don't leave until it's
He's
time.
eligible. He's coming.
Well, don't leave yet.
No.
Sean needs you.
Yes,
All right.
I do.
Next
So
question.
We got 2 questions left, and they're really good. So let's start with Susan from Columbus, Ohio.
Oh,
And I can relate to this. I have 2 boys that think they're going to go to the NFL and stuff, And so, what habits or traits would you recommend for young athletes that have a passion and want to make it to the D1 level for really any sport? But
listen, what Jerry Moore taught me: do more than what's expected. Look around at the guys that you're in the room with. 99.9% of them are just doing what's average. Do a little bit more each and every day. Shoot a little bit more, catch a little bit more, block a little bit more, study a little bit more. the simplest things will get you ahead in life. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of time or effort, but a lot of people just don't do it. Most people just don't do it.
Do more. That's a great question, Susan.
Yeah.
Susan Harrison, maybe.
Susan Harrison from Columbus.
So what age should kids start going to the weight room?
You know, I'm not a strength guy, but you know, I don't see anything wrong with it. My son's in there. He got in his 7th grade.
Okay.
What's Max benching?
Max is a hoss. I mean, he is a strong. He's a strong man.
Listen. I mean, the genetics of Summer and Shawn Elliott. I mean, and Madden is a beast too.
Madden is the best athlete in the household.
No doubt, I'm in agreement there.
She's a 2-time competitive cheer state champion.
She probably could be all-purpose tennis, all-purpose softball, whatever.
Yeah.
But I want to know what Max is benching so we can track his bench press for the future.
Well, I went up to his room the other day just to check on him, make sure it wasn't destroyed or anything. And he's got weights up there in his room. I said, "What are you doing these weights up there?" He's like, building these arms up.
Trying to get him like my dad.
At 13. At 13. He looks like he's. He looks.
You're all. Sean's all jacked up. I thought Sean might be taking some anabolic steroids from somebody because he's all jacked up.
I have to still compete against my players. Our players have to know, like one of the great things that we do as a staff in our off-season workouts, I make everyone on our staff lift with our team. If you're a secretary, you lift with the team. If you're a video, you lift with our team.
Really?
If you're a football operations, I want everyone to see us struggle in the same sense that these guys have to go struggle, and it's great. I mean, we're all in there. Male, female, we're all in there.
Last question, Gus. Got to get this guy out of here. He's got to go recruit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Gigi from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Ooh. Gigi.
How did this one get through here? Is Eric Elkin single because he is so handsome?
Oh my God.
Who got that?
That's my mother-in-law, by the way. And, she is single, so if anyone has any,
Jen, watch out.
She's a good-looking catch now.
She's hot. She's hot. There's no doubt about it. And your wife is hot. So
those are two good combinations.
So it didn't fall far from the tree. But I mean, Gigi, come on. You know I'm happily married. Kristen, seriously, don't. You need to screen these questions.
I saw you. Eric used to look at Gigi when she get out of the car, and when we were neighbors. I saw it.
Well, she's a beautiful. She's a gilf. I guess is what they're called. All right. So on that note, it was a great show today to have my good friend, legendary coach, with the future still in front of him, Mr. Shawn Elliott of the Georgia State Panthers, previously the offensive coordinator at the University of South Carolina. He was an all-pro at App State. He had an opportunity to work for Saban, Mike Tomlin, Rich Rodriguez, but he's now making his own road, and he's got so much to look forward to. And he's also, and what he said most important, which I really resonated with me, is it's all about the quality of life. And you hit me with that one, which I really love, and I want to emphasize that to anyone listening, is it is about the quality of life. At the end of the day, money's great, but it doesn't bring happiness. And then the last thing, and you harped on this, was the Jerry Moore, basically, do more. Do one more. Do more.
Than what's expected.
Just do more, and you will see success from it. So good stuff, Sean. I really appreciate it. Thank you, man, so much for coming on the show today, and I look forward to hanging with you soon. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please check out our previous episodes on most podcast channels. You can hear the Shrimp Tank Charleston, as well as the video portion of this interview on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, just type under the search menu, The Shrimp Tank Charleston, and you'll see a bunch of stuff come up. Our website is shrimptankpodcast.com/Charleston if you want to go there and become a subscriber, a fan. You want to send notes like Gigi saying how handsome I am. That's all good too.
Or her number, right?
Or yeah,
We can get her number.
but I'm happily married. So, but feel free to still send that kind of stuff in. I love it. If you or your company would like to schedule a call with Double E to discuss performing an audit of your insurance, financial, or retirement situation, please email us at info@double-ellc.com. Lastly, if you think you or you know of someone that is an entrepreneur or leader making an impact in our world, like a Coach Shawn Elliott, then please contact our producer, Miss Kristen Killman, who's also single. She's attractive. You can ask her out as well.
Wow.
And you can get her at kk@double-ellc.com. That's
kitty cat.
kitty cat at DOUBLEELLC.com. I'm Eric Elkins. Thank you so much. Keep grinding.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's
Welcome to the Shrimp Tank Charleston Show. I'm your host, Eric Elkins, but in real life, I'm an entrepreneur and founder of Double E Insurance and Financial Solutions. Double E helps individuals and companies navigate through their financial insurance portfolios. Double E provides clients an entertaining and unique experience. The Shrimp Tank Charleston Show allows us the opportunity to interview and learn from the brightest entrepreneurs and leaders around. We dive into their journey and discover what drove them to become so successful. We will make sure we get out of them not only the wins, but also the losses that they have had on their journey. We are a nationally syndicated podcast that can be heard and watched on YouTube, Google, Apple, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also tune in and subscribe to our shows on our website, shrimptankpodcast.com/Charleston, or check us out on the Double E website, double-ellc.com.